Hi there, this is Cmd G and welcome back to my channel. So I've been on a bit of a hiatus. I've recently moved to London and it's just taken a while to get back into things, but I've got lots of Renoise content I look forward to bringing you soon, and we're going to jump right in today with a video about drum breaks, and I'm going to take you through the whole process of kind of cutting up an amen, getting it to warp in the right way in Renoise, and then we're going to get into all slicing and different techniques and phrases and loads of stuff coming up. So I'm going to split this one up a bit, I think, because otherwise it's going to be a really long tutorial. So I'm going to do a couple of segments here, and today we're just going to focus on actually how you get these breaks sliced up in Renoise and running at the right speeds and all that kind of stuff. So I've just got a Winston's Amen that I've taken off YouTube, so nothing special here. It's just I've just gone and found the first video on YouTube and ripped it off there. If you can see, it was just this one here. The first thing we've got to do in this waveform editor is kind of find the first beat where the amen kicks in. So I can use enter here to trigger it from the cursor, or I can use the keyboard to trigger C4 beat. Yeah, C4 there. Play from the start, so it's quite useful to use enter. You can also put in a marker, and I've done that with Cmd K. You can press Cmd G to change your cursor to the slice tool, so both are good methods, and then you double click the number at the top to get rid of a slice, and then you can see the slice here, C#4. So that's looking pretty good to me there, and I can move that around and trigger it with C# rather than having to press enter and click around. So they're both kind of useful ways to get this first slice really tight, but that sounds quite good to me already. If you zoom in, I can see it's probably a bit more like there, and if you go right in, it's probably right there. It's good for me, where you see where this energy just starts to build, which is kind of like where the kick drum comes in. So now we've got our slice, what we want to do is get rid of this bit to the left, which is kind of like a dead section. So I'm on a Mac here, but I'm pressing Command and double left click, and it's going to highlight the area either side of this marker. And if I put in another marker, I can highlight in there and in there. And I'm clicking in the middle here. If you click at the top, it's going to just do one side of the stereo field. And if you do it in the middle, it's going to do both channels. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete, I'm just using backspace, delete that start. Now it's got rid of my marker, but what I've done now is I've got a nice chop right at the start of this amen, so that's going to be good to work with. Now we've got to go to the end and do the marker at the end. So if I'm looking in here, and let's put another marker in with Cmd K, and so if I play the C4, it's going to play the top slice, which is going to play right from the beginning. But if I play C#, it's going to play this. So it's in here, isn't it? I just want where this energy starts. Like it's going to be right in there. That might be good. So let's delete that and let's have a little listen. Cool, so sounding nice and clean. I might just normalize this, so this button here will maximize the volume of the chop, and so we've got a nice amen sliced away. We've now, let's go up to 170, which is kind of in between what you'd use for kind of old school jungle and some newer drum and bass, a bit for the faster stuff. So I think 170 is a good marker, and we're going to use beat sync here. And right now it's going 64. Okay, so I just want to quickly mention what this beat sync is doing. 64 here, I'm telling Renoise that this break will play across 64 lines in Renoise. So what that means, when we're rolling it at 4 lines per beat, each one of these notes is a 16th note, and so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, and then there's a new beat. Okay, so if we go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, then you've got 4 beats per bar. You've got 4 bars in a phrase, so 1 2 3 4. So what's happening here is that when I'm doing 64 lines in Renoise, and if you listen to this amen break, I'll count through with you. It goes 1 2 3 4, and so that's mapping perfectly to 64 because that's actually a phrase that's got 4 bars in it, this amen break. And so if I sync it to 64 now, it's just going to map perfectly. It's going to speed it up and it's going to map perfectly the first note in here. And I take this thing off. This is a nice little 2-bar amen loop. And as I explained before, when I beat sync it to 32, it syncs perfectly. Now if I leave beat sync on and say I copy this, what I'm doing is I'm alt clicking in this area. You can see it gives me these kind of focus markers. If you alt click in an area, you can then use hotkeys in that area, so the different key commands will work differently for whatever areas is selected. And so I'm going to alt click and then I can just copy this sample. I can just copy this sample here and I can paste it here, and it's going to give me an exact copy with all the same syncs and stuff. If I just double click the actual sample here, I can also paste that in, but it's not going to copy all the settings. You see, it's giving me like a 6 dB boost in the volume, and it's not done the beat sync. So I quickly just want to jump in here and just mention that you got to click this little T button here to commit this beat sync amount to the pitch transposition for this instrument. So this is going to look a bit strange because I've already time stretched this break. I've just had to jump back in here. But if I press this T, it applies the beat sync value to the transpose and fine tune setting. So if I click that, it's now going to have brought the beat sync amount into transpose and fine tune, which it was just doing automatically. And you can tick that off. Renoise is going to now, rather than be using the beat sync value, it's just going to use the transpose values. And if I chop it up, so if I go and say, I just want to use this end of the amen, which is very common to just use this part of the amen. And if you watch Stranger's videos, he's got some amazing stuff, but he shows how many drum and bass tunes are just made with this end part of the amen. What's happened now, if I turn this beat sync on, so if I'd left it on, it would now reading it wrong because I've taken kind of 1.5 bars, but if I leave it off, the transpose and the fine tune are now dictating the speed of the amen, which we walked before. So that's kind of one way. If you can get a nice big chop of a 1 bar, even if it's got some music in, you can get your perfect 1 bar chop. It kind of makes it easier to get to this point. Another thing you can do is actually come in here and you can, if I loop this here, so I've got a perfect chop here, I can actually select this area like this, and I can go right click and render to sample. And now if I can normalize this potentially again, and let's take this volume to 0. I've now got a perfect amen, and it's got no transposing done on it because I've already kind of committed to that, and I could rename this. So cool, we've now got a nice amen, all kind of polished. Yeah, so before I get into slicing the amen, I'm just going to go over some of the hotkeys quickly that I've been using, just to really hammer home how you kind of like get around this sample editor. So I use Cmd K a lot just to put in a slice marker at my cursor point, which is good. If I'm putting lots of slices in, it's almost easier to press Cmd G, and then I'm just scrolling with Shift and my mouse wheel. So when you just use a mouse wheel, it's going to go in and out at your cursor, and then you can use Shift to horizontally scroll, and then you can just come through and put slices in like this, and I've got snap to zero crossings off. If you have snap to zero crossings on, it's going to get rid of pops and clicks, which can be really handy. You can also use this automatic slicing tool. Here, if I just copy this one again, now I've put my slices in. If I go right click in here, slices, delete all markers, and then I go like this, I can change the sensitivity here, and then I click this again, and it's going to keep finding, it's just looking, it's got a threshold and it's looking for kind of peaks. Okay, so now we've got all our slice markers in, and we've got this nice amen break. We've committed to the speed, so this is the one that we rendered out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this away. Okay, so we have beat matched our amen break to our project tempo, and then we've rendered it out and we've committed to the speed, so it's running perfectly for a 170 beat. And then we've just put in some slice markers here now, so we're pretty much ready to jump into the pattern editor. Now I just want to quickly create a duplicate of this amen, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this one, and I'm going to get rid of some of these slices, and I'm going to use it as kind of a longer sliced version, because sometimes it's a bit easier. Let's have this little shovel. It can be a bit easier to just have it, you know, I probably don't even need this. No, let's keep that one in. And I've got this little button here. This is probably worth talking about now. This little button here, when the one slice gets to the next, it gets chopped off. Now if I take this off, it's now letting the slices play through to the end, which is really, really useful. So they kind of allow you to do two different types of chopping styles, and you can program them a little bit differently in Renoise. When I do lots of little individual slices, I'll keep this thing on and have them all chop each other up and get really detailed with the programming. But if I want to use this longer slice technique, I'll quite often have this off, and then I'll put mono on, and mono will mean that each slice won't overlap. So even though the slices play to the end, when I trigger a new note in Renoise, it's going to cut it off, as it's only letting one voice play at a time. So that mono is basically mono and polyphonic, not mono and stereo. The mono is meaning this drum instrument is now going to play with one voice, and each time you play a new note, it's going to cut off the last one. And I would almost go and then save this again and call this like long slice. So I have two different types of amen that I can use for different chops, and you can use them in the same patterns. And when you want to do super detailed little shuffly bits, you could use the individual slices, and you can use this longer slice technique for programming the main kind of stuff. So what I'm doing now is I've got this button follows the cursor when you press play. If I have this on, it's going to follow my line, and so I think it's quite useful to have it off a lot of the time, but you can use it to line it, get to the right places in your songs. So you're always, when you're in Renoise, you'll be using both of them, using it on and off all the time. I'm also using the enter on the right numpad. I have been through all my hotkeys, but I'm just going to mention them as I go. Enter on the right numpad is going to loop an area. So for now, we're just going to keep rolling, and then back to the beginning. Boom, 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 boom. And so like I almost want to just hear from the second half now. So I'm now going to dun, 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 and then maybe kick snare again like that. That's on the, and then look, kick snare again. Dun, 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 dun. I want to put this one here. So I'm using the nudge. It's called Super Nudge. This tool. Tool browser. It's called Super Nudge, and it basically allows you to nudge rather than having to cut this and move it down. I can actually just nudge it down. So now we got a nice rolling amen, and you can obviously see you can just go forever creating a pattern. I can then duplicate this pattern down, and maybe I move this one down. Let's do this here. Oh, I want this one out. I can also copy and paste notes, so I just want to. And if I want to just hear this little roll at the end, that's cool. I can use Shift and Spacebar to play from wherever my cursor is. So I kind of like this roll that I did, but I actually put it in the wrong pattern. So I'm command up and down. I'm jumping down to the next pattern, and I'm pasting that in. Cool. So now you got some slight variations there, but it's enough to keep it interesting for the ear. And so you can keep going, and then you kind of have, if you think about it, you would go 2 more, and then this would be your kind of block. And what I might do is just go a bit crazy and show you another technique that I do quite a lot, where I have this randomized notes, which is another tool. I know I'm jumping into some tools here. So I'm using this tool here, which is a note randomizer. What we can do here, if I go selection, custom, and I know if I go back here that all these chops that I've been using, they go from C sharp 1 to up to F sharp 4, so C sharp to F sharp, and so I'm just randomizing these chops to the kind of number of chops I've got in Renoise. And what is going to happen now is I can just hit this, some of it was cool. Let's do it again. Let's take off this last one because you can hear it's just going. Oh yeah, I can also, rather than using enter to loop, so I could loop this whole area, or I can hit this little slot here, and you can shift click and click multiple slots, or you can just individually click them on and off, and this is going to loop this area as well. So you see this the F sharp is triggering this last slice, and it's not sounding that good. So I've taken that off now, and I'm gonna hit randomize again. Oh, that was cool in there. So I like this bit a lot, but I think the start's a bit weird. So I'm actually gonna go and kind of then program in, and then let's go here maybe. I'm gonna take off that. Yeah, let's go here. There, yeah. Oh, here we go. And then, and now I want to go make it smaller. Ding, ding, ding. This one here. Go here, let's go randomize this bit. Oh, that's kind of cool with loads of drum hits. So what we got now, I've not done any beat effects. I've just literally programmed in straight up amens. And we've got a kind of a nice enough kind of section of music now. We've got 4 phrases put together. And, you know, if you're making a beat, you could kind of put this in a nice section and you could call this verse. And this would kind of cover you. You've got your bigger fill at the end of the fourth. You've got a little different variation at the end of each one, and they're all a little bit different but kind of in the same vein. And that's the idea, really. You want to have definitely some variety, but not going too crazy that it just sounds like it's all a different track. And I think that should be good for today. So yeah, it feels good to be back on YouTube. I'm going to bring you lots of content soon, and yeah, keep it real. Peace.